People with purpose. Personal friends and strangers you meet on the street. Many among you are people with purpose. Today, you will meet people who have experienced a change of heart and mind and whose lives now have meaning. This series of telecasts, led by Dr. Harold Lane, pastor of the First Baptist Church of Menlo Park, California, will seek to probe the meaning and reality which can be directional for everyone. Dr. Lane.
Laugh and the world laughs with you. Cry and you cry alone. Have you heard that one? I just coined a new one. Sing and the world will try to hum along in harmony. Climb up and you do it all by yourself. Today I'm going to be talking about one of the most important facets of life. The ability to sing with joy in one's heart. We're going to be talking to a very familiar person that you have seen on television. You've heard him by way of record. Of course, I'm talking about Tennessee Ernie Ford. Before we talk to Tennessee Ernie, I'd like to remind you of the little booklet that I've written entitled People with Purpose. I'd like to invite you to write for this booklet. It may be yours by writing to San Francisco, and the box number is 7744. People with Purpose, box 7744, San Francisco. You know, music is an international language. You may not be able to talk in the language of other people, but if you can sing, people will identify with you and they'll appreciate you. Come over with me and meet my friend today. Hi, Ernie Ford. How are you doing?
How are you?
Beautiful to see you.
Good to be here. Thank you, sir. Oh, this is great.
What have you been doing recently, Ernie?
Specials and records, guest shots. I'm leaving in a few days to go down and honored to sit on the dais with my dear friend Lucille Ball. She's going to get the humanitarian award, and I'm looking forward to that. She meant a lot to me in my career.
Fantastic. Well, that's great. I hear you've done a new record recently.
I sure have. I'm just so inspired by this new material. 10 brand new songs written by young people. They're not in a hymnal yet.
Not even a hymnal.
So encouraged about what this material means and what it does. It's just great.
What are some of the songs you're doing on it, Ernie?
Oh, I Find No Fault in Him. I'd like to introduce you to a friend. I Wish We'd All Been Ready.
That's in the musical Come Together, isn't it?
Right, and
yeah,
it's a
beautiful.
very strong piece of material.
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
Listen, you have this, is this the...
That's the cover. I didn't really come to plug records, but that's what it is.
Well, I'm delighted to know that we have the ability to let people know about it. I think it would certainly be interesting to us to hear the first number you have on there. What's the name of it?
First number is a very powerful piece of material called I Find No Fault in Him, which, as I told you earlier before we went on, the basic concepts of the meaning of Christian life, as we've always known it for many years, is here. But we use today's instruments, today's music, and young voices. I said this many times since the album was made. I did this album in a studio at Capitol Records that I sang in before half the chorus or half the band was born.
Good. Well, let's listen to that first number, I Find No Fault in Him. Can we do that?
Then Pilate therefore took Jesus and scourged him. And the soldiers took a crown of thorns and put it on his head. And they put on him a purple robe. They came up to him saying, Hail, King of the Jews! Then they smote him with their hands. Pilate therefore went forth again and said to them, Behold, I bring him forth to you, that you may know that I find no fault in him. They led Christ to Calvary, and he spoke not one word, just the cries of lost sinners was all my Savior heard. Then they pierced him so deep in his song, until the blood came streaming down. And that's how Jesus purchased my salvation, and I find no fault in him. Then Jesus came forth wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe. Pilate said unto them, Behold the man. When the chief priests therefore and officers saw him, they cried out, saying, Crucify him! Crucify him! Pilate said unto them, Take him and crucify him, for I find no fault in him. Then they pierced him so deep in his side, until the blood came streaming down. And that's how Jesus purchased my salvation. And I find no fault. I find no fault. I find no fault in
That's strong, preacher.
Man, that dog will hunt.
That dog will hunt.
That was really beautiful, Ernie. I particularly like the words. Of course, I love your voice always, but those words have power and meaning. And Pilate's saying here, I find no fault in him. Who could find any fault?
Well, that was the first real big cop-out, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so.
I think-
He was trying to wash his hands of everything and say, no fault at all.
Take him.
Right, we have no. Ernie, what do you think about today's music? The kids are doing a lot of musical things that I personally enjoy.
I'm so encouraged. I really am, and flattered in a way, too. I don't know whether I can say I'm distinguished in being this or not, but I am now the senior artist on the Capitol label. And they still got me there.
And your number one is the man with seniority and longevity.
Yes, that's my good friend Tex Ritter passed away. He signed a little bit before I did.
Yeah.
But the music, to answer your question, I'm so encouraged in all facets of it today, and the young are diving in there and really taking a part. Look at Nashville. Look what's happened there. And I just got back from there doing a special. There's 26 young Opryland singers there that something's coming up for us. I don't know. I'll mention it to you a little bit later on. It's quite a surprise.
Fantastic.
But
we'll want to hear about
the
that.
music is encouraging. I think it's getting better. We're getting some of the best man-woman love songs that's coming out today that we've had in a long time.
Beautiful.
Just real great things. And no, encouraged. I really am.
Ernie told me something as we were just sitting here that I think is so special and unique. I want him to share it with us. He's a good friend of Gary Player.
Gary Player, yeah.
Right.
Well, Gary is a good friend of mine of many years. He was my pro one year at the Bing Crosby tournament, and he played badly. His wife was in South Africa, and I think she was going to have a baby, and he played badly. It was cold and rainy, and the Lucky tournament was coming up, and I said, now look, why don't you pack your things, stay at my house the weekend, and then we'll play the Lucky tournament. He said, could I do that? And I said, so I took him home, and he spent the weekend, and we didn't even go out to dinner. Betty cooked dinner, my wife, and while we were sitting in the den with Gary, she sneaked in the other room, and through a bunch of operators, she got a hold of his wife in South Africa. Well, they talked, and he shed a little tear or two and came back, and that made him feel so good. Well, I saw him this last month at the Masters tournament in Augusta. I said, how are you, Gary? He said, I'm fine, everything's going great, and we had a little reunion. He practiced. The last day of the tournament, which was Sunday, Gary went out to play, and he was in the top 4 winners there in score. And he took his scorecard before he teed off. He said, I can do everything through Christ who strengthens me.
Oh,
and he won it.
Just beautiful.
That's great, isn't it?
He's a real Christian then, isn't he?
Oh, yes, he really is.
He believes in Christ and all. You know, I've always wanted to ask a question, and I've got you in the place now where I can ask it. Ernie, are you really from Tennessee?
You bet. Well, you know, Pastor Lane, I'll be a Tennessean all my life, even though I've had to live in California. And I love it, and it's my second home. But when you spend as much time as I did back in those beautiful hills, I keep up with its politics. I keep up with the football team. And all my kinfolk.
Volunteers.
Yeah, the tennis, Big Orange.
Yeah, right.
And I've got so many friends back there. I go 2 and 3 times a year. I do some commercials for a great food company back there in Nashville, and they're my hosts. And then that's when we all go to the Masters tournament.
Right.
And school chums that I've kept in touch with, and my old church, where my dad worked for all his life. And no, I'll be a Tennessean all my life.
One of the reasons I wanted to ask that, my father and mother were born in Tennessee, and they've always said you were the greatest.
Really?
Yeah, from Clarksville.
Clarksville.
You know that area?
Clarksville, Tennessee is the home of another great golf pro on tour, Mason Rudolph.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, father's gone now, but mother still lives down there, and whenever anybody from Tennessee is around, man, she waves the banner, you know, whoopee and all that.
That's great.
And so you're king around
Tennessee's
that place.
a great state.
Oh, that's great. Well, I've always wanted to ask that. I've known a lot of people called Tex who've never been to Texas in their life.
Generally from Minnesota.
That's right. But it's good to know that really your title fits where you're from.
Yeah,
that's good.
It's a good place.
Ernie, another question that occurs to me, in all of the music that you do you really give a little bit of yourself when you sing? I mean, is it just purely words, or do you give something?
I can't do that. That's why a great blessing in my life was when I got to national television, formed our own company, we produced our own show. It just came to my mind. I said, now look, Ern, you've got an opportunity here to give laughter and fun and this great music like this,
yes,
all across the nation. It was a little scary because every producer and director I ever had the good of the show to their heart, and I've had great people. Yeah. But when I started and going nationwide, and here I had 20 of the greatest voices in America called the top 20.
Yes,
I said, here's the opportunity right now to give this music, and don't write any arrangement that's over the head of anybody. Sing it with your head up and a good look on your face. Because so many producers and directors think that to perform this music, you have to put on sackcloth and set in a pile of ashes. I don't believe that. This is happy music.
Exactly.
And, well, it just like that, you know. So at the closing of everything, and I still do it, no matter where I go to work. I always take a young group or choir, and we always close the same way. And it's just... what a blessing to me, because I feel then that I've done some little thing.
That's your contribution. That's your stewardship, as it were, of what God has given you and your ability to use it.
And thanks to my daddy, because he said, don't quit singing them.
Yeah. You know, that's another item that I'd like for us to consider. A heritage. You, it sounds like to me, have a rich Christian heritage. Ernie, tell us a little bit about it, would you?
Well, I'm just from a great Christian home. We didn't have any money, but we all worked, and Mother was a good cook, and we were warm. And
Southern fried chicken.
Oh, and gravy.
And gravy.
I can't have it anymore. I just took off 25 pounds.
Biscuits in there somewhere.
So good, isn't it?
Yeah, that's great.
But it was our Christian upbringing was a part of our life, but it was a happy thing. My daddy worked all of his life with young people in the church and out. He'd go down and borrow an old truck from somebody and bust up 2 or 3 bales of straw in the back of it and take 25 kids down in the country and 4 hound dogs and go possum hunting, have something to eat.
You enjoy possum?
It's been a long time since I've had any possum.
I remember a possum dinner that I went to once.
Sweet potato.
Yeah, Basco, Illinois. Never heard of it, I'm sure. Wide place in the road. I think there were 15 people that lived there. But they drew them out of the backyards and every place else, and they had possum dinner. They invited me to be the guest speaker, and I did my best with that. But you know, I just don't have a.
It takes a certain kind of cook to cook possum. You got to render it for a weekend to get the grease out of it.
Well, I don't think they knew just exactly how, so we had a little problem. Ernie, you know the name of this show is People with Purpose. And all these people on the backdrop, most of you probably know that, are people with purpose. Matthew and John and Timothy and Jonah, Samuel. These were people with purpose. And we've been talking in these weeks with individuals from our community and nationally known figures who have, in my estimation, been people who have real purpose. They know what it's about, they know where it's at, they're interested in doing something with what God has given them. You know, I see you in that light as a person with purpose. And I'd like to ask you a question that only you can answer. Are you a person with purpose from your way of looking at things?
I think going back in some earlier talks that I'd had with my daddy, he said one thing to me one time. He said, always like people. And it goes a little deeper, actually, than love your neighbor as yourself type thing, honor your father and mother. And I've always liked people. And then it came to my mind one time, and said, now there's a purpose that you have somewhere. And I guess over the years I found out it was God gave me this talent, and I've tried to use it in many different kinds of ways. I like to make people laugh. I like to sell product. I love to do commercials. I love it. And then sing, and to be able to, over the years, to sing different kinds of things. I've sung rock, I've sung the sacred music, and then of course I did some things from Carmen and from Tannhäuser at one time.
Tremendous.
So I guess my purpose, I've been trying to perform it over the years.
Give it as you understand it. And
one of the great things that's happened to me over my career is the association I've had with the people who have seen me. There's so many people in this business that can perform and are highly paid, but they know nothing about the inside of the home or the person that's sitting there. And they're actually frightened of them. Because one tremendous entertainer one time said, what are you going to do at the summer break off, our hiatus? I said, Betty and I are going to get on the ship and go to Hawaii. He looked at me and he said, alone? I said, yeah. Then he said, what are you going to do about people? That's a tragedy. And there's many that know nothing about people.
How do you relate to them, and how do you feel?
Can I tell you a marvelous thing that happened to me?
Please do. We'd be anxious to hear it.
As long as I live, I will never forget this, and it's only happened last June. They reopened a place in North Tahoe called King's Castle. Some real nice people opened it, and I'd quit working rooms. They wanted me to be the premier act and open it. And I refused at first. Then they called me back and said, please, we'd like to have you open it. I said, all right, for 1 week, but not 2. Well, we had a tremendous opening. One day, about 3 days after the opening, I'm sitting in the coffee shop having my first meal of the day with the public relations man of the hotel. And we just had our meal, and a nice-looking lady got up from the table. It's in the coffee shop, and her husband. She's nicely dressed in a little suit and hat, and she looked over and she saw me, and she took a double take, and she walked right over to our table. And I started to stand up, and she put her hand on my shoulder, and she wasn't a ding-a-ling now. She was a sweet little... She put her hand on my shoulder, and she said, sit down, I have something to say. And this is her word for word. She said, now when I go, I want you there. I want the casket open. And when you start to sing How Great Thou Art, that'll be the last chance I'll have to move. And if I don't move, shut it up and put me away. Now, you can't beat that.
No, that tops them. That's really something. I believe you're selling a product. You said you like to sell, Ernie. I like to sell, too. And I'm selling, I think, a pretty important product, the greatest in all the world, Jesus Christ. You play golf, and so do I. Not nearly so well as you, I'm sure. And when
I'm a hacker.
Oh, I'm sure you do better than I do. But anyway, I remember going out to the golf course, and it looked like it was going to just pour down rain. And the fellow in the pro shop said, well, preacher, he said, after all, you have a direct line. Why don't you do something about this? And I said to him, Ernie, I said, look, I'm not in management. I'm in sales. So
very good.
My point of view is that when we're talking about selling something, I think as Christians and people with purpose, we have the greatest thing in the world to give, joy in living. Jesus said life should be full, and people ought to enjoy it. And you know, I like your philosophy of making people enjoy life through music, and that's so good. Now, one more question, Ernie.
Right.
You've told me that you're a person with purpose. I believe it. Who's your purpose giver?
Well, I guess Christ.
I guess so, too.
I don't guess. I know it.
That's wonderful.
No, really. It's Christian fellowship throughout the country that I've enjoyed because I've been in the business I've been in. It's just been, I've written down some things. It's someday I want some other people to see after I'm gone. You know.
Yeah.
It's been marvelous.
I am sure that every one of us today have enjoyed hearing from one of my favorite musicians and singers, and I've listened to you through the years, and I've always enjoyed your music, and I've always enjoyed watching you sing. Part of singing is the countenance that a person has, being able to convey what he feels, and I believe that's what you're doing. You're letting us know what's going on inside, not just what's up here or in the throat, but what you feel in your heart.
Oh, yeah, you have to feel it. That's just, you know, one of the great things, too, when I work with a young group, I have a tape cassette made up of the closing that we do, which includes Amazing Grace, Put Your Hand in the Hand, Take My Hand, and it's all a medley and it builds.
Right.
I'll have a group of, say, 14 to 16 young voices. Well, Jack, my conductor, sends them a little cassette of this closing with little instructions. By the time I get there, first rehearsal, they know it better than I do.
They're prepared.
They are ready, and it's just, they sing it so great.
And in this album that you've just cut, Ernie, which is, I think, a very beautiful one called Make a Joyful Noise, I noticed one of those songs, I Wish We'd All Been Ready.
Oh, it's a great song.
Be ready to be prepared.
Oh.
When the Lord comes again, be ready for him. I wish we'd all been ready. Today we've been talking to Tennessee Ernie Ford, who really is from Tennessee.
Right.
And who has shared with us some of the personal experiences which have been his, and also shared with us the purpose of his life and the purpose giver. And I am, for one, delighted to know that he is a person with purpose with Jesus Christ, the purpose giver. Let me remind you now of a little booklet we're inviting you to write for. It's entitled People with Purpose. We've talked to on this telecast some people, as I've mentioned before, Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, his good wife, Ruth Peale. We've talked to Alvin Dark, manager of the Oakland A's. Today we've talked with Tennessee Ernie Ford. All of these, plus many of our other friends who have been on this show, are people with purpose. You may have this little booklet by writing to Box 7744, San Francisco. And even if you don't want the little booklet, I would like to know of your interest in what we're doing. You think it's important? Let us know about it. Write and say, Pastor Lane, we'd like to encourage the kind of thing that you're doing. Now, for just a few minutes, I'd like to talk to you about a verse of Scripture that's found in the book of Psalms. Psalm, the 126th chapter, and the 2nd verse. The verse says that there is within the hearts of these people, God's people, a song. And as they sing, the people who observe them, the Scripture says, the heathen look and say, notice those people. They sing with joy. One of the things that I've enjoyed about music is that though I am not the best musician in the world, I enjoy singing, and I can identify with people who have happiness in their life, who are enjoying life, and let the people know about it through singing. Some of you, I suppose, are like some of my friends. You couldn't carry a tune in a basket, but you enjoy singing. A close friend of mine said recently, you know, after I finish singing, people come up and say, you know, that's the one thing I miss in life. I wish I could sing. That's evidence, isn't it, of the fact that we want to show others what we really feel? I love to hear good music. We have in our church, First Baptist Church, Menlo Park, a youth choir of over 100 young people who sing beautifully. Tomorrow, as a matter of fact, for those who are viewing this live tonight, you will be able tomorrow evening to hear this group sing Tomorrow May Never Come, a musical written by Scott Heibel, one of our staff men. And these young people with choreography and with vitality share the faith in Jesus Christ. And I hope you'd be able to attend and hear it. It'd be a great time for you. But what I'm driving at, these young people are uninhibited when it comes to music. When they talk to people on the street, sometimes they're a little shy, they're a little backward. But in music, they're not afraid to express what they feel. I feel sorry for people who have lost their hearing, people who are deaf, because in that, they are not able to hear the harmonious tunes that emanate from the lips of musicians, both vocal and instrumental. I'm also sorry for them because they can't hear the sound of the voices of people that they have come to know and love. They're unable to hear the wind as it whistles through the trees. They don't have the privilege of hearing the ocean as it laps up along the shore. And that's sad. And all they can see is the lips moving. But for those of you who God has still entrusted the sense of hearing, use it wisely. Listen to that which will lift you, not degrading things. You know, so often we make our ears sewers, and we take in things that are just really not worth listening to. But beautiful music can give you inspiration and zeal. It'll help you to live life with purpose. The purpose giver of my life is God through His Son, Jesus Christ. And I remember when, just as a young lad, I felt as though God wanted me to go into the ministry, I said, you know, that's not what I want to do. I've seen roast preacher consumed at Sunday dinner so often, I'd just as soon not have that experience. But you know, God came and tapped me on the shoulder, and I said, okay, Lord, what I'll do, I'll be an evangelistic song leader. I'll get up and I'll lead the masses because I like to sing. And God said, all right. Then He said, you know, I like for you to do that, but I think there's something else you ought to do. You ought to share the message of Jesus Christ orally, verbally, give it from your heart, not only in music, but with a spoken word. And so I accepted that challenge. And the purpose giver of my life, God, said, all right, here's the opportunity to tell people what makes you happy. And friends, you know what really makes me happy? The happiness of knowing that I have a relationship with God through His Son, and that I can share this with anybody and at any time, and that I need not be ashamed. And I remember Paul saying, I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ. It's the power of God unto salvation to everyone who believes. To the Jew, to the Greek, it doesn't matter where he's from, to the Scythian, to the barbarian, anybody can have that joy. And so I, this day, am able to say to you, the joy I possess is because of my faith in Christ, and I'm glad to sing it. I'm glad to share it. I'm glad to say to a friend like Ernie Ford, Ernie, there's joy in singing.
You bet.
There's joy in living, and there's joy in being.
And there's joy in listening.
Absolutely. And those of you who can listen and hear, I want to say to you, open your ears that you may hear, open your eyes that you may see glimpses of truth that God has for you. Now, as we close this telecast, I'd like to say to you, we believe God can give you purpose. If you'd like to have the little booklet, I remind you how to get it. Just write in. It can be yours free of charge. We wouldn't charge you anything for it. If you want to send a gift, that's between you and God. We won't turn it away. But we're not asking for that. We're asking you to share in what we're doing. And so until next week at this time, thanks, Ernie Ford, for sharing your life with us. And thank you for watching People with Purpose. See you next week at this time.
For your free personal copy of Dr. Lane's booklet, People with Purpose, write Box 7744, San Francisco 94119. That address again, People with Purpose, Box 7744, San Francisco 94119. People with Purpose is produced on videotape by Kaiser Broadcasting Company for its sponsor, the Norman Vincent Peale Fellowship.